It's the journey of a woman who was born in a small Texas town, a girl full of fire and energy, who found love, built a family, and then lost everything to life's cruelty. She faced grief, poverty, and a world that showed no mercy. And yet, instead of being broken, she rose again, not only to provide for her daughter, but to become a successful, wealthy, and deeply fulfilled woman who now inspires countless others. This is not a story of fairy tales. It's a story of tears, of nights without sleep, of courage found in the darkest corners.
Sometimes I feel like my life is split into two realities. In one, I am a little girl running barefoot through the grass, catching fireflies in my palms, believing that goodness always wins. In the other, I am a woman who once woke up a widow, with a child in her arms, an empty fridge, and a list of debts longer than my hopes. Between these two worlds lies a road of many years, full of holes, sharp turns, cliffs, and a stubborn light at the end. I walked this road alone, and if you ask me how, I'll tell you. I was born in a small town in Texas. I didn't need to be persuaded to live. I lived with all my might. I ran faster than the boys, always hit the highest notes in the school choir, and could make friends with every dog in the neighborhood. My mom called me wind in a sundress, and my dad laughed that I needed to tie my shoelaces in a double knot, or I'd never catch them. At school, I was always busy. Plays, dances, cross-country, volunteering. I loved watching adults argue about something important. I imagined myself growing up and arguing about important things too, and people listening to me. People often called me beautiful, sometimes too bluntly for a child, but my mom taught me, beauty is like rain. It can come and go. What matters is what you plant in the soil. So I planted diligence, curiosity, and the habit of finishing what I started. In high school, I started painting posters for school events, then for the local flower shop, where the owner, Mrs. Danvers, paid me in donuts, and thank you, sweetheart. That was the first time I realized people could pay me for something I loved doing. In college, I tried everything: journalism, psychology, design, marketing. I didn't yet know what I would do in life, but I knew for sure. I needed speed and meaning. I wanted to build something of my own, and that something had to matter. I met Jason at a charity run. He jogged next to me, joking that my stride looked like someone who was late for a train her whole life. At the finish line, he handed me a bottle of water and said, "If speed had a muse, it would choose you." I laughed. 6 months later, we were talking about books, about cities we'd never visited, about children we'd name with names we liked. Our wedding wasn't glamorous. A white dress, his blue bow tie, a small church with stained glass windows where the sunlight danced like it was meant just for us. I remember how he squeezed my hand when the priest said, "For better or worse," and how confidently I nodded. I thought the worse would be somewhere far away, off the map. When Sophie was born, her dark eyes held both the sea and the sky. I learned motherhood the way one learns to look at stars, blindly at first, then with awe, then with gratitude. At night, I rocked her to sleep, and in the morning, I sketched logos for small local clients and delivered printed flyers to cafes. Jason dreamed of opening a small coffee shop. We walked through old, empty buildings, measuring them by steps, as if you could size the future and pick the right fit. He used to joke that coffee beans were just an excuse for people to meet and not be afraid to look each other in the eyes. When Sophie was 4, our lives were split in half by a phone call and one word: illness. An uninvited guest that walked in without knocking and sat down at our kitchen table like it owned the place. I had to learn new words I'd only heard in TV dramas: protocol, therapy, remission. I held his hand in sterile hospital corridors, trying not to cry in front of him. We lived in between treatments and hope, between normal life and the shadow of it. At night, I lay beside my daughter, telling her fairy tales where the father always came back. In the morning, I wore my smile like armor. No one teaches you how to keep breathing when it feels like air has left the world. The funeral was simple. Friends brought casseroles and hugs. The flowers smelled too loud. I stood there thinking that vows of for better or worse don't come one after the other. They come together, and sometimes the worse is the shadow of the better. When it was all over, silence came, that ringing silence that presses on your ears. In that silence, I heard numbers. How much was left in my bank account, how many bills were unpaid, how much we'd lost with no insurance. I came home with a child and a new vocabulary, the language of survival. The first thing I did was open the fridge. Milk, an apple, and half a jar of peanut butter. I counted the coins in my wallet and went to work at the nearest cafe. Mornings behind the coffee machine, afternoons cleaning offices, nights freelancing on design platforms, layouts, brochures, logos for people bargaining over every dollar. The world became rough. People sometimes said things I'd never have forgiven before. Make it cheaper. What's the big deal? Or, stop crying, everyone has problems. I clenched my teeth and answered the way life had taught me. It costs me time, strength, and sleep, but I'll do it. There were nights when Sophie and I shared one piece of bread for dinner, days when I had to choose gas in the car or new shoes for her. Sometimes I swallowed my pride and went to the church pantry for free food. Sometimes I cried silently in the bathroom so she wouldn't hear. And still, every morning started the same. I opened the curtains. Light is not a luxury. It's a habit. One evening, after I spilled coffee on a customer's white shirt, I came home exhausted. I looked at my hands, stained with marker, cleaning polish, and coffee grounds, and realized this couldn't go on. So I wrote a plan on a notebook paper and taped it to the wall. Close small debts. Secure at least 3 steady freelance clients. Study marketing and design 2 hours every night. Build a portfolio, 12 cases in 12 weeks. Keep rituals with Sophie. Bedtime reading, walks, our Friday evenings. I bought an online course on credit. At night, I studied funnels, typography, brand voice, advertising. I treated kerning like it was oxygen. Maybe it was. My first real clients came through neighbors. A bakery, a flower stall, a handmade soap shop. I made them simple but neat designs. Clean logos, flyers with sharp focus points. I took photos of the work with my phone, built a folder called Portfolio, and sent it to anyone who would look. How much will it cost? They'd ask. Let's discuss what you need. If you want it done quickly and reliably, I'm your person. I didn't overcharge, but I didn't beg either. My only currency at the time was reliability, even if it meant going to bed at 4 a.m. and waking up at 6. Once I took on 3 projects at once and missed a deadline. The client was furious. I went to him in person. This is my mistake, I said. I'll refund you and finish the work for free if you'll let me prove myself. He paused, then nodded. That night, I didn't sleep, but I learned 2 things. To plan based on reality, not ambition, and to set boundaries. From then on, I had contracts, down payments, limits on revisions, and for the first time, I said no to someone who wanted yesterday and for cheap. Within a year, I couldn't handle everything alone. I hired an illustrator, then a web designer, then a copywriter. We worked remotely, sent files back and forth, debated fonts in group chats. I always paid on time, even when clients delayed, and people stayed. We named our little studio North and Kind. North for clarity, cold light, honest lines. Kind, because that was our method to explain, not to crush, to listen, not to interrupt. One local journalist wrote about me, a young widow helping a bakery turn lines into neighborhoods. The article brought a call from a fitness studio chain. Are you the ones who make small things visible? We're the ones who make good things noticeable, I said. Then come in. The meeting terrified me. I'd memorized my presentation like a prayer. When they asked about my fee, I gave a number that scared me, but matched the work. Silence. That's expensive, they said. Expensive doesn't mean unfair, I replied. We take responsibility for results. They agreed. 3 months trial. That contract paid off my debts and bought Sophie a new coat without a discount tag. Step by step, North and Kind became an agency. 7 people, steady clients, campaigns across the country. Not everything was perfect. One campaign failed, a client left. But we owned our mistakes, rewrote our processes, and months later, that same client recommended us to others because they admitted their flaws, fixed them, and gave 3 alternatives. Honesty turned out to be a rare competitive advantage. The day I signed with a large educational platform, I went to see a house. Nothing fancy, just a bright kitchen, a sunny living room, a backyard with flowers. Are you sure? The realtor asked. Yes, I said. I promised my daughter a house where we could be loud. That night, Sophie ran through the empty rooms, laughing. I lit a candle and placed Jason's photo on the windowsill, not out of grief, out of gratitude. When people say wealthy, they mean money. And yes, I had it now. Enough for bills, salaries, savings, Sophie's college fund, and donations. But true wealth was freedom. Freedom to choose clients, to say no, to sleep without fear, to want without apology. We created a small grant fund for widows and single mothers starting businesses. Every quarter, we mentor women, review portfolios, help set prices, and build processes. I know what it feels like to send your first trembling proposal and to hear yes. If you are standing where I once stood, in the dark that feels endless, know this, nights end. I won't promise an easy road, but I promise there is a road. My wealth isn't just numbers. It's my daughter, our Friday night rituals, my team's laughter, our clients' trust, and the women who write me, I tried. It worked. I am still that Texas girl, running faster than her shoelaces, except now I run not away, but toward myself, toward life, toward kindness. And if you ask me what the most important part of my journey was, I'll tell you simply. I never stopped believing that light isn't something that happens far away. Light is something you ignite in yourself and carry forward.
What you have just heard is not just a story. It is living proof that resilience, love, and courage can turn even the harshest trials into strength. Amanda's journey reminds us that no matter how deep the darkness, there is always a light to be found, not outside, but within ourselves. She has shown us that wealth is not only measured in dollars, but in integrity, kindness, and the power to rise when life tries to break you. We stand in awe of her courage, her determination, and her refusal to give up, not for herself, but for her daughters, for her future, and for the women who will now walk a little braver because they heard her story. Amanda, you are not just successful. You are extraordinary. And you have given us all a gift. The reminder that no matter what we face, we can overcome, we can rebuild, and we can shine.